They say she was born during a lunar eclipse. A bad omen, the midwife muttered, wiping blood from her trembling hands. Her mother died before dawn. Her father was the village scribe, one of the few men allowed by the monastery to handle parchment and ink. At 12, she stitched wounds on birds with thread she'd boiled in wine. But it was not her skill that condemned her, it was her silence. The girls in the village played with dolls and spoke of husbands. Isolde spent her days in the woods, whispering to stones, collecting bones. They called her strange. Then they called her touched. And finally, when the miller's child died of fever, and Isolde had been seen brewing tea from foxglove petals, they called her witch. And Isolde, bones aching and spirit burned, was cast into exile, into the forest beyond the boundary stones, where no priest would tread, where no path returned. He taught her to read in secret, under candlelight, with trembling fingers and warnings like prayers. Never speak of this, never show them what you know, but knowledge is a hunger, not eisali sight. The child was silent for 3 days, and when she finally cried, it was not the cry of an infant, but something hollow, distant, like wind through old bones. They named her Isolde, after a saint who was martyred by drowning. Though there was little saintliness in the eyes of the villagers when they spoke her name, they dragged her from her home, her fingernails filled with ink, her lips stained with elderberry. Her father begged him, swore she was no witch, only a child, a gifted child. But the priest would not hear him. The devil teaches those he wishes to destroy. Isolde grew up in the narrow valley of Sila Mortis, where mist clung to the stones like old grief, and time passed not in days but in seasons of sorrow. By the time she was 10, Isolde could recite the Psalms in Latin and sketch Urs from memory. They came at night, as they always do. The mob needs darkness to cloak its cowardice. They burned the books first, pages turned to ash like moth wings. Then they tied Isolde to the post in the square, not to burn her. No, that was a mercy reserved for men. 4 girls, they had the choke stool, a barrel of icy water, chains, and silence. She was submerged 3 times, and each time her eyes remained open, staring upward as if watching something no one else could see. She did not die, and that, of course, was proof enough. The bishop declared her guilty. Her father, broken, vanished into the hills. But the forest, as it turned out, had been waiting. The forest did not reject her. It watched, it listened, and slowly, like a grieving widow unlocking a long-sealed chest, it opened its secrets. Isolde stumbled through tangled roots and damp silence, half mad with fever, half dead from shame. Her skin was cracked and grey, her breath shallow, her thoughts tangled like the ivy curling above her. For days she ate nothing but snow and bitter moss, until hunger forced her deeper into the heartwood, where the trees grew black with age and birds no longer sang. And it was there, beneath the hollow of a gnarled yew, that she found the cabin. It should not have stood. Its stones were older than the village, older than the abbey itself. Ivy had gripped its roof like a crown of thorns. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, there were no windows, only shelves. Thousands of dried herbs hung from the rafters like sleeping spirits. Books, real books, bound in hide, pages inked in languages Isolde did not recognize, lined every wall. And at the center, a table, with a single word scratched into its wood. Remember. She studied the fungi that grew on corpses and the flowers that only bloomed after lightning. First, it was a hunter, poisoned by a thorn. He returned, limping but alive. Then a child, pale from blood loss, healed with crushed snail shells and nettle root. No one dared speak her name aloud, but they whispered of the woman in the wood, the one who does not age, the one who writes her cures in silence. Her handwriting became a ritual, long, sweeping lines like branches, words pressed deep into the parchment, as if she could bleed her soul into the ink. She learned to distill pain into liquid, to draw heat from the earth, and to coax life back into dying lungs. Of drowning, of her father's voice calling from somewhere she could never reach. She dreamt of hands, dozens of them, reaching out from behind the trees, whispering her name, accusing her in 1,000 tongues. But it was not magic. It was knowledge. Too old for the church, too precise for fear. Each stone marked a cure discovered, a child saved, a soul reclaimed. The table grew heavy. Still, she could not forget the weight of the ropes, the cold water, the eyes that watched and did nothing. That night, Isolde did not sleep. She lit a fire from dried rue and oak bark, boiled water in a copper pot, and whispered the names of things her father had taught her. And as the flames danced, the silence around her thickened. It was not loneliness, it was presence, something ancient, patient, and watching. The forest remembered what men forgot. Over the years, Isolde lived among its memories. She read the forbidden books with trembling reverence, and word began to spread, slowly, like mist creeping over stone. But Isolde never returned to the village, not even when the priest who condemned her was found rotting from the inside, his body filled with flies though he had no wounds. Not even when the famine came, and children cried for bread. She waited, she wrote. Each page she scribed was a rebellion, a song in the dark, a defiance, not of God, but of ignorance. And yet, in her solitude, Isolde was not at peace. She dreamt of fire. Each night, she set a stone on the table. She did not age. Her hair darkened, then turned silver like frost on ash. And one day, as the sun died blood-red behind the trees, a knock came at the cabin door. The girl outside had eyes like Isolde's, and she carried a book. The same book Isolde's father had once hidden in the floorboards, long ago, before the world had chosen fire over truth. The girl's name was Ellen. She had fled the village after her mother was taken by the black fever, a rot of the lungs that filled the air with the scent of wet iron. The priests had locked the sick inside the chapel and burned it, with them still moaning inside, claiming it was mercy. Ellen had seen the flames eat her mother's face. She had not wept. Her voice had grown thin from years of silence, and there was a brittleness in her heart that feared tenderness. But Ellen stayed. She swept the floors, gathered the herbs, watched with the same fierce quiet that Isolde had once worn like a shroud. And in time, the cabin, once a tomb of memory, began to feel like breath again. She brought with her only two things: a satchel of half-molded bread in the old book, the one with Isolde's childhood sketches pressed between its pages. When Isolde opened it, her breath caught. The ink was faded, but the words remained. Her father's notes, his precise script, his drawings of her, age 7, face smudged with ink, holding a feather quill like a sword, but with parchment, a chance to serve the Lord by sharing what she had learned. With ink and ash, she did not ask how Ellen had found it. Some things, the forest simply returns. She found a noose nailed to her door. Isolde taught Ellen the names of hidden things, not the ones men used, but the ones whispered by the earth itself. They no longer called her witch, they called her necessary. That was worse. Not a book, but a record. Recipes, remedies, drawings, warnings. The birds did not sing. Prayers stitched together with scars. Every cure they discovered, every mistake that nearly cost the life, all inked carefully, methodically, as if the act itself could defy the fire she knew was coming. Grief leaf, mother's wound, maiden's thirst. Each word held power, and Ellen repeated them with reverence, like prayer. And it was Isolde who stitched him back to life, using a salve made from crushed beetle shells and the heart of stag's tongue fern. Isolde, for the first time, the forest had grown restless. The crows circled lower. The wind no longer whistled. It wept. Did not? Isolde sat alone at the table, who had bled out while monks debated whether it was God's will. Of her father, whose love had been buried beneath silence. Of the name she had been called. Witch, demon, unnatural. She wrote of the weight of knowing too much, and the cost of knowing nothing. The fire had died. Ellen slept curled near the hearth, a stack of parchment under her arm. Isolde dipped her pen in ink, and began a final entry, not of herbs or healing, but of confession. They are not afraid of what we do, she told her. They are afraid that what we do works. For days, she did not sleep. She worked until her fingers bled, chanting ancient words not to God, but to time, begging it to slow. At first, Isolde said little to the girl. The forest fell still, as if holding its breath. They worked by moonlight, grinding bonewort and foxbane, boiling tinctures that hissed and sang. But knowledge is never a secret for long. When the bishop's own son, young Thomas, golden-haired and dying from a festering wound, vanished into the woods, it was Ellen who found him, barely breathing. When Thomas opened his eyes and whispered, "I dreamed of a woman made of crows," Isolde knew the church would come. And they did. Not with torches this time. The bishop sent a messenger, robed in velvet, voice like honey laced with venom. He offered her absolution, a place at the monastery, but Isolde heard the crack in his voice. She saw the fear behind his piety. She refused. Days later, Ellen wanted to run, and so they began to write, because it would come. One night, she wrote of her mother. She ended with a single sentence. I was never trying to change the world. I only wanted to stop the dying. When she sealed the last page, the next morning, they came at dawn, not with bells, but with blades. Dozens of them, monks in red, their eyes hidden beneath hoods, hands smeared with oil and salt. They moved like shadows, made flesh, wordless, merciless. The herbs had stopped blooming days before. Even the fire had grown reluctant, refusing to rise beyond embers. Behind them, the bishop rode on a white horse to clean for the mud it crossed, his face carved from cold stone. Isolde had known. The birds had warned her. She did not fight. There was no victory to win. She only told Ellen, take the book, run when the fire starts. Do not stop until you reach the sea. It was the smile of someone who had long ago stopped believing in salvation, only in seeds. Ellen's hands trembled, clutching the leather-bound pages still damp with ink. You'll come, but Isolde only smiled, and it was not a kind smile. They dragged her from the cabin. This time, no trial, no crowd, just ritual. They chained her to the old yew tree, the same one that had once sheltered her. Around her, they poured oil mixed with holy water. The bishop read no scripture. He only whispered, "Forgive me," before stepping back. When the flames took her, she did not scream. The book never left her hands. At night, she wrapped it in her cloak. Only stones, only silence. In storms, she shielded it with her own body. She did not know where the sea was, only that she must reach it. She healed wounds that should have rotted. She took no coin, only promises that those she healed would teach another what they had learned. In handwriting to steady, to belong to the dead, it read. The fire turned blue, then green, then black. The monks stepped back, murmuring prayers. The bishop closed his eyes. This is not a miracle. This is memory, and memory is how we survive. Some called her Saint Ellen. Others whispered she was a sorceress, or the ghost of a burned woman. No one knew. Tried to destroy the book, and somewhere in the trees, Ellen ran, like truth. Somewhere, in a library the priests never catalogued, a page survives, and on that page, drawn in charcoal and ash, is the image of a girl, silent eyes open, standing in flame, holding a quill like a sword, had already rooted itself. In other hands, in other voices, passed from mother to daughter, from healer to wounded, across borders and languages, tucked beneath floorboards, stitched into clothes, hidden in lullabies. She did not look back. She ran for days, through brambles that tore her skin, across rivers that nearly drowned her. Behind her, the forest burned, but the cabin did not fall. The yew tree charred, but did not crack. And when the fire finally died, when the monks searched the ashes for the book, they found nothing. Years passed. Plagues came and went. Kings died. Empires fell. But somewhere along the coast of a forgotten country, a woman opened a small clinic near a fishing village. She spoke little. She wore black, and her walls were lined with strange dried plants and ancient parchment. She cured fevers that should have killed. Her name was never given. What they did know was this. On her shelf stood a single book, bound in old leather, inked with faded words, and on the first page, "This is not a gospel." The church tried to find her. They failed. Because the book, they say even now, not a witch, not a saint, but something far more dangerous. A woman who remembered.